This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call the Invest in Willmar board meeting to order for Wednesday, February 10th, 2021. We'll do a roll call. Swatsky.
Here.
Ammon.
Here.
Tonal.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Poe.
Here.
Councilmember Nelson.
Here.
And our Mayor Marv Calvin, is he present? And then Audrey, do we have another council member on the call here that's new to our group?
Well, Councilmember Butterfield is supposed to be. I don't know if he's on the call or not.
Okay,
I don't know
Councilmember
who one is
Butterfield.
either. Butterfield
Okay.
is the one who's assigned.
Okay. I've got 6 members. 7. Sorry, counting me. I've got 7 members and 1 council member Butterfield not on the call. Any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? If I could get a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Swatsky.
Second, Anderson.
Motion made and second to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? All in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. If I could get a motion to approve the minutes from January 13th, 2021.
Our motion to approve the minutes.
And I've got a motion from Conold and Councilmember Nelson, a second. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor by signaling by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries. We'll move on to item number 1 on the agenda. Update from Subcommittee Robbins Island. Rachel.
Rachel, you're not on.
Sorry, I didn't realize it automatically puts you on muted. Perfect, thank you. We had a meeting on January 29th with Jared from Bolton and Mink. We had a good group in attendance of our committee, which is what we needed because the major purpose was to solidify our vision for the shelters, the lighting, and the landscaping out at the island so we can stay on our current projected timeline in order to get those bids out accordingly by April so we can start the project hopefully by May, weather dependent. So what we did with Jared was he had perfect examples of pictures of shelters. So we told them exactly what we all agreed upon for shelter number 1, shelter number 2, Hilltop, Gurry. We discussed lighting. We all agreed on what we wanted for lighting there. We saw pictures. We picked out where we want the lighting to go. We also discussed electrical, which is going to be kind of wishy-washy given the fact that the electrical out there is outdated, and we'll kind of open up a can of worms to see what that price impact will be for us on our budget. But Kurt with the city and Rob are going to be working closely with Jared on that to figure that out, and landscaping too, because we can save so much money by working within the city and public works on trees and bushes that they already do every year within their own facilities and neighborhoods, that we could probably get a better price just when they order their things through Stacy's Nursery, that we can get in with that deal. So we went through every item while we were there and told them exactly what we wanted. So the next plan is within the next 2 weeks from now, we're going to be getting some results back from Jared with probably a schematic design of all those wants that we have. And then we kind of go from there if there's any tweaking or anything that needs to be done, because once we kind of pass a certain point, it's hard to go back on changing. And it's going to increase costs, of course, with Jared. But I think Rob was really happy after that meeting too, and Kurt, as far as giving him the specifics that he needed in order to do his job, to do the design. So we're on track. Our committee's excited, and we're doing good things. So we'll be able to meet the deadline, I guess, to meet with Invest in Willmar to show you our proposal here according to our timeline. I think our goal is about the second week in March. So unless you have any other questions, I don't think Jared's online, but Rob might be.
Sounds good. Anybody have any questions for Rachel?
I
Well,
did forward the email, Matt, from that you sent, or Janelle, just asking that from that meeting, since Jared kind of led it with his agenda, if he had any notes from it, or maybe my vice chair can help me out with doing minutes too, to get those to the right person within the city to put on the website.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Rachel. You guys are doing a great job. Appreciate all the time. And if we have any questions, we'll follow up with you. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
Next up, Swanson Field, Mary.
February 4th, our committee met. We revised the budget. We sent the new revisions to Rob on Monday 2/8 after the complete committee had a chance to review what we had agreed upon orally. They looked at the plans. And so now we are waiting for the revised stadium plans from the architecture firm, and also requesting or asking for a new timeline for potential next steps. So we are just waiting for meeting the demands of the budget.
Awesome. Good job. Thank you. Any questions for Mary on Swanson? Okay, next up, Julie. Community Center.
Okay, we're on hold. We're trying to schedule a meeting with all the city council members and the department heads for March. It appeared that we could not come up with a date in February that worked for everybody. We're still working on financing for the city hall / community center and what that might look like. And FYI, I did forward the invite for this meeting to Brian Kath. He is the chair of the community center committee. He couldn't make it today, but if he could be included with the email invitation for the future, that would be awesome.
Sounds good, Julie. Thank you. Any questions for Julie? Okay, thank you again. Yeah, and the next meeting is March 10th. Just a note on that. We can note that at the end too. Thank you. So next up is, thank you, Julie. 4 o'clock, March 10th, second Wednesday of every month. Next up is a storm. I don't know if anybody's got an update on storm. I know
I can update. Yeah, I can update a little bit, Matt. We haven't had another reorganizational meeting, if you'd call it that, because we lost a council member that was assigned to that committee. So we do have a new council member assigned. That'd be Mr. O'Brien, I believe, has been assigned to that committee. And so at this point, I'm trying to put together an agenda and some dates that might work to have a re-kickoff meeting, maybe, if you call it that, to reconvene that stormwater committee. We've, I think I reported last time, we've got the first project of that priority list completed, and I think there might be some spring work just to touch up work punch list items for that east side drainage, and then we'll at the same time or simultaneously move on to the next project from that priority list.
Sounds good, John. Appreciate your work on that, and keep us updated whenever you get a chance. Thank you very much. let's move into the rec fields update presentation. Is that, John, is that you, or is that, do you have somebody here presenting?
Yes, I don't know if Rob needs to say anything beforehand, but I'm going to introduce our architect, the Widseth Architects. Dana has been working with us. Sorry, Dana, I'll butcher your last name, but I will turn it over to him to present our project to everybody. And he presented last week to the community. We had a community presentation, and now we are in step 2 to present it to the Invest in Willmar board. We'll let him present, and then we will move to any questions that this group may have on our rec fields presentation and update. Dana, are you good to go?
Yep, ready to go. Okay, I think everybody can see my screen here. Move that over. This might be the first time some of you have seen this presentation. Others of you are familiar with where we're at with the project. I'm going to try to come in at kind of a high level and go through the design development set of drawings, not the entire set of drawings, but where we're at as far as design development. We've completed schematics and finished design development, and we're moving into the construction documents at this time. The design team is myself, Daniel Levichuk. I'm the architect of the project. Anderson Johnson is our consultant. They're our turf consultant. They'll be working on the fields in the north. Marcus Construction and Joe DeGroat is doing our construction management component. And of course, the city of Willmar as well. Project location, as you're aware, is adjacent to the Civic Center and northeast corner of Willmar. The project consists of 2 components. The first component is on the north, which is 2 proposed turf fields. The second component is a wheel of 4 softball fields located on the south side of the Civic Center parking lot. And feel free to speak up at any time if you have any questions if I go through this too fast. Like I said, the first part of this project, now this is a single phase project. I want to make that clear that we're doing both components at the same time in a single phase. We've taken our budget, or the budget that we've been given, and we've kind of streamlined this to get the most out of our budget and most out of what we can do with the space that we have. So we didn't meet all of our wish lists. I know we came up with a large wish list at the very beginning, which included a bubble and stadium and multiple components. And from that, we've broken that down through multiple cost planning exercises with Joe DeGroat and Marcus Construction to get where we're at today. So on the north end of the Civic Center, we have planned for 2 synthetic turf fields. The field on the west is 93,140 square feet. The field on the right is 90,900. All of the components you see around that are identified as future. I'll start from the left or the west and move to the right. We've identified, or we've planned for, a future parking lot of 160 stalls. This would be strictly for the use of the synthetic field on the west. If and when this becomes a dome, we did not have the dome as part of this project because it didn't fit within our budget. There were other components that determined that we weren't going to have the bubble. I know maintenance and a few other components were part of that decision. Okay, moving across, now we've also identified a future stadium, future track, and all of the supporting components for the synthetic turf field on the east, which is 90,900. I know this has come up multiple times, so I'll just address this right now. The reason we have 2 different size fields is now if you look at the white lines, they're the same size within both fields. The field on the left has warm-up space or batting cages, warm-up areas on the turf on the north and south ends of the turf field outside of the soccer. So when the second phase happens and we include that bubble, that is the boundary of the bubble. It allows you to have soccer games going on inside the bubble while you're warming up or having softball or whatever needs to happen. You put batting cages on the north and the south. That's what directed the shape of this field here. The shape of the field on the east is dictated by the track, and you can see the outline of the track and a 9-lane running track and how that impacts the corners and the size of that synthetic turf field on the east. Also part of our single phase project is including lighting, which is 6 poles. We'll have 2 poles on the west, 2 in the center, and 2 on the east. Those 6 poles will cover lighting for both fields. Items that we're not including in this phase, like I said, the parking lot on the west, scoreboards, pole vault, bleachers and visitor seating, both home and visitors on both sides of the east field. And then, of course, the track, a 9-lane track, and then the supporting components for that track for the high school, which would be the high jump, shot put. And then I think there are a few other pieces on there, but those are identified as future components that are not in this phase. The south end of the site, south of the Civic Center, will have 4 softball fields. One field is identified as a championship field, and basically the only difference to that one is we'll have the batting cages adjacent to that. Part of our first phase of the project is to put masonry dugouts in the championship field. The rest of the fields, the other 3 fields, will have just a chain link dugout. There's no roof on that. All of the fields will have irrigation in the outfield and drainage on the infield. In the center of the complex, which I'll show you here in just a second, will be a concessions building. We have future scoreboards identified around the site, all 4 sites, so we're not planning on scoreboards at this time, as well as future lighting. We're planning for that as well. We'll identify bullpens adjacent to each field, so there'll be 4 bullpens for warming up pitchers, and then batter boxes and other components for that infield. The concession stand is minimal. We have small storage space for the rec department or the rec teams, men's and women's restrooms, a narrow or small concessions building, and a small storage / mechanical. Some of the components that we're designing for the future on this one is we're putting some large conduits or multiple conduits from the floor down, or from the room down into the floor, turning 90 degrees through the foundation wall, and then surfacing outside of the sidewalk. And we're doing that to accommodate future lighting, future scoreboards, audiovisual. So we're allowing for that to happen in the future. On both ends of the concession stand, we'll have a small covered seating, as you can see here, where we'll have tournament coordination. Might be a good place to get out of the rain in case you get a storm event.
I got a question, Dana.
Yes.
Can you go back 2 slides? I just have a quick question.
Sure.
So, like on this one here, do you see, or is there enough room when there's not women's softball or little kids baseball? Do you ever see, and is there some space on the green space where you could have little kids soccer games going on out there with the growth in soccer? I realize with the turf we've got room over there, but is that something that, or is that not going to be possible?
Yeah, we've laid over soccer on top of softball fields, or actually where we do that is over baseball fields, because you really don't have the distance. With little kids soccer, yeah, you could run, your little U12s or I'm sorry, not even 12s, probably your 6 and 8s, maybe 10s you could run on the outfield. That would be fine. It's going to mess with your infield a little bit, and it's possible, you could use that, but we have these new fields just to the north. I think that would be better to try to utilize these. And we're going to stripe these both directions. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. We're going to stripe these both directions, so we'll have short fields going east-west, and then the long field going north-south.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so answer your question. Yes, we can do that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you go back to the previous one where you were? Some of the drawings we saw before had a lot of stormwater needs in what we were doing. That took up a significant amount of land, and I'm just curious if stormwater has been planned into this. That my first question on this slide.
Okay, so yeah, actually we hit a couple of bumps this week in regards to the stormwater retention, and so we've got a small pond identified here. I believe I've got Laura on the line with us. Laura's with Bolton Mink, or actually I don't see Laura. Do we have somebody else on the line with Bolton Mink?
Dana, yes, this is Chris Gormley. I'm on the line for AJA Bolton and Mink. Yeah, I can go ahead and talk a little bit about stormwater. So the current drawing you have in front of you shows an area for stormwater pond to the southeast. It's kind of the box shape with the kind of U shape on the end. That's a general sizing. The idea would be to allow the turfs to drain to that pond before it outlet and to receive treatment there before it continues onto the main pond to the east. However, we're currently working on potentially utilizing the existing pond slash wetland to the east. The site, a large majority of the site currently drains there, and we have previous plans that show that it was designed to serve as a stormwater pond, and we've gotten preliminary feedback from the county, Kandiyohi County, and our own wetland specialists that they believe it may be possible to utilize that pond for stormwater treatment. It is a possibility, and we've made a submittal to the Army Corps of Engineers and the county to get it declassified to be an incidental wetland, which would allow us to alter it. It's currently classified as a wetland, so there's protections for wetlands that you can't impact them without having to mitigate the impacts and to create other wetland compensation. So we're trying to we've submitted and initiated the process to get that declassified. However, it's not a guarantee that it will be. The Army Corps may rule that it is a wetland, and so there's a level of uncertainty to the stormwater design right now that we can't necessarily proceed in one direction without confirmation from the county and the Army Corps of Engineers. So we're currently exploring that.
Okay. My second question on this one is I know that we will be moving the school softball fields over to the wheel, but I'm just curious about the future 9-lane running track. Is that being looked at as a community running track or a school running track? And are we displacing, I mean, is that part of the property displacement, or I'm just curious about this, what appears to me to be a school function. I just clarified that.
Rob, you had met with the school in regards to that. Can you please address that?
Yeah, or John, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess right now we're just putting together a master plan of what it could look like. There's a lot of work going forward if it's a partnership between the community and the school, or if it's a private fundraising donation drive that we do. We just wanted to lay it out for the possibilities of the future. And with the Civic Center so close and the school so close, where all the kids are located, and the rec center being there, not a community activities, that might be a possibility of a joint venture going forward, or something maybe that the school would like to do in the future. But we'd like to make sure that we have it laid out, so that if and when that is a possibility, we would like to be able to have that available for us. I don't know if that answers your question, Audrey.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. But I have one more question. If you want to go ahead 2 slides to the building. You used the term minimal, and I have a concern about when you have softball wheel, about where the softballs go, and that there isn't more overhang around this building for protection with that. And so that's just a question. I know you commented about it on the one end, but having experienced various wheels with both in high school and in college, I'm concerned that this does look very minimal.
No, that's a good question. Well, we have the overhang on both ends, on both the storage and concessions. And, we try to accommodate that for, the backstop will be a height for our, it's 14 or 16. I have to look at that for this age group, but what the height of that backstop is to prevent balls from coming backwards. You're going to get balls over the back of the net. That's going to happen. We put the roof over the ends on the seatings. Like I said, that's mostly for storm, but also for shade. And then if you're standing there and a ball comes over, you'll be protected as well. But but we'll see balls coming backwards, and they'll hit that nice new roof in the first season. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
What else makes the building minimal?
Okay, well, that's a good question. So typically what we do with this type of a building is we'll use a masonry construction on the exterior, an 8-inch furnish block, or sometimes a split base block. It tends to be more durable and last longer, especially when you got bats in the premises. We scaled this back to a wood frame building with a LP or cement board siding on the exterior. Generally, we'll do like a metal roof over the top for its length and durability, or lifetime and durability. This project, we scaled that back to a shingled roof, and this was all budget driven. Otherwise, the rest of the building is pretty much the same. We use hollow metal frames and metal doors for security. We'll use a roll-up door for the concessions buildings. That doesn't change. The interior of the concessions, that's pretty standard. We'll have a sealed concrete floor with what's called a reinforced fiberglass panel on the interior. That's for both food grade cleanability, and because we don't have heat in here, we don't want any sheetrock joints, so that'll have seams in there that'll be allowed to move. So basically, when I say we scaled this back, we've taken it from a masonry building to a wood frame building. We've gone from a metal roof to a shingled roof. The building itself, I mean, we allow for storage, we allow for concessions, and we allow for restrooms. That was our goal, and that's what we tried to accomplish here.
Thank you.
There's still, minimum standards that we have to meet as far as when you're serving food. We have to make sure surfaces are cleanable. We have grease traps. We have wash, rinse, sanitize for the sink. You can see the triple sink there. We still have hand wash sinks. So we're still, we understand that we have to meet those just basic design standards for when you're serving food.
Very well done. Are we still?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot this last slide. We had our first public presentation on February 3rd. Obviously, today's February 10th. We're doing the Invest in Willmar. Following this, we have our Park and Rec presentation on the 17th, Public Works on the 18th, City Council presentation on the 1st. We're planning to be done with our construction documents at about February 19th on next Friday. And then we'll sit on those drawings until City Council presentation on March 1st. Pending approval from the City Council, we'll move into public bidding. Now, keep in mind that we have a pricing exercise with Marcus Construction after the completion of the construction document, so we'll hopefully know where we're sitting, within an estimate, as far as we can, as close as we can get. And we'll approach City Council then with that final construction document estimate on March 1st. Public bidding is March 2 to March 26. Pending approval of the subcontractor bids on April 12th, we'll then begin construction this spring and completion this summer.
Looks fantastic. Any questions? Dennis has his hand up.
Thanks, Matt. I don't know if this question is best directed at John or Dana, but one of the things that our group agreed upon when we were going to have this meeting was a little bit of a discussion about how well the proposed project met the ballot question. And I'm wondering if you could kind of run down there and tell us how we did versus the ballot.
Yeah, I can touch on that, Dennis. I know Matt sent that out this morning to us, and I'll just trying to pull it up. But we basically everything was met except for the bubble. As I go down the list, it says girls softball fields, youth baseball fields. We've got that with the four field pinwheel. With 2 recreational multi-purpose turf fields, we've got that. Concession stand, we have that in the middle of the pinwheel. Lights on a timer for evening recreation, we have that in the plan as well. And then the bubble over 1 turf field 6 months of the year. That's the only thing that we do not have in phase 1. We're hoping that we can have some leftover money in our budget to go towards that. If everything comes in favorable, that's our hope, that with the contingency money may be left over that we could use later on down the road. And then also we're going to have to, like I mentioned with Audrey, possibly joint venture with different entities, school, private organizations in the city of Willmar, possibly in the next couple of years. So after we get this going, Tony and I are committed to working on phase 2 of getting the bubble for the community, because I know that was a big item for everybody. And we wanted to get all the infrastructure in and then move on with that, so we don't let that die for our community. So is that, hopefully that answers your question, Dennis. We got everything.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Next up, I saw Mary's hand go next. Go ahead, Mary. Mary, you're on mute, I think.
Yep. So a couple of questions. One, is this part of the land transfer transition between school and city?
I'm gonna let Rob touch on that. He said that they're in the process of that. So go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, thanks, John. We met with the school and talked to Dr. Holm and his group. We were all set to have it go to their public buildings and grounds committee earlier this fall, or this past week. I think it was going to be early February, and they pulled it for another review with their attorney, their district attorney. So we hope to have everything completed and ready to go for the March timeframe, so it can go to their buildings and ground committee and then to their school board, and then we'll go through the process here with the city. So everything's on track. We wish that would have happened here in February, but it has not. The school district pulled it back.
Okay, so let's just hold that thought for a minute. And then back up to when we were talking about the water retention areas. What happens, what kind of timeline are you hoping to see? I mean, is that working with in the next 6 months, or does that take a year to figure out? Any help with that?
Chris, can you address that?
I'm sorry, is the question how long will the wetland incidental submittal take?
Yep. Thank you for rephrasing that. Yep.
Yeah, that's the review process is 45 to 60 days is what we've been told. And submittal was made last week. So that would be first or second week of April before that is finalized.
Okay, so keeping those 2 things in mind, I don't know what the Invest in Willmar board's responsibility is, but I just want it noted that to have it discussed, that is it okay for us to decide that this project is ready to go when we don't have in our minutes yet that we have the land transfer secured, because we are working with another board. And because we are working with land and wetlands and water retention ponds, what is our responsibility? I just want to make sure that I'm voting yes or no, or passing this on with complete confidence that we're being responsible with our end.
I guess on the stormwater part, and Dana can probably speak better to it, but I think they have a alternate site for stormwater if that Lake Marley area is not deemed, if it's deemed a wetland, they have an alternate plan for the drainage. Is that correct, Dana?
Yeah, that's correct. And I think that's, Chris, I think you alluded to this earlier, that this sort of reverse horseshoe box thing down here is basically your plan A. If we can't go over, I'm sorry, the lake is plan A, this other retention pond is plan B. And so you're envisioning a quick switch between the two depending upon the end result. Is that correct? So we don't have any delays, any additional delays when we hear back from the Army Corps. Is that correct?
Well, that's the other option would be where it's shown on your plan there. That's correct. As far as the Army Corps' timeline, when they do give approval, we'll have to see how that shakes out with shifting designs and repricing things, potentially having to update the permit with the city if we have to change from what we propose.
So what pot of money does that come out of? And how do they appropriate that if they have whatever pot that is going to be out of?
What do you mean?
That's a question for those.
What do you mean, what pot of money?
I mean, it's in there.
For the rec, so for the rec fields?
This is Tony. I think the costs either to go to Lake Marley or the retention pond are equivalent. So it really doesn't affect the budget.
Audrey, did you have a question?
Yeah, and after just a follow up to Mary's, I'm wondering if our city administrator would comment on Mary's question about, are we really ready to approve this today, or at least it feels like a lot of these things need to be T's crossed and I's dotted before it gets a final approval. But my second question is, we've been talking about the costs, and I'm just wondering if Mr. Baumgart has put together any operational costs too. That I think will be a concern for the next project that we talk about. I'm just curious if we can at least get what we estimate the operating costs to be for this project too.
With the operational costs, to be honest with you, the turf field, there's really not going to be a whole lot of operational costs for us unless it's going to be more rec staff and officials to be out on those fields when we're using them. We have to still get the understanding about with the lights, and we're still talking about if it's going to be a 50 or 40 candlelight power. With the rec fields or the softball fields that are being dragged and everything, we kind of already do that now with the softball complex that's at the high school. So that's already into our part-time budget. We do those fields already. So it's just a matter of just doing an additional field.
I guess I appreciate that. I guess it would be helpful to have something in writing that turf fields will have some cost to it. Plus we're adding on to what we maintain. So there has to be something. So I'm just putting in a request that even if it's minimal, that we know, is this public works or is this rec department, or where will the operational costs be covered? So
I can get that for you and for the group.
And then John, I got a question for John. So with these fields, we're looking at more recreational football, baseball, soccer for the park and rec department. And then I'm assuming you're involved with some of that stuff in the summer with Rob. And then there's some fees, like my kids are out of the park and rec levels now, so there's some fees that get generated from these programs that could help the expenses of what Audrey's talking about. Is that, I mean, you guys generate some revenue, right? Most of your programming is going to be park and rec. Is that correct?
Yes, I envision, some of the similar things that we have now, but I'm just talking summertime. Do you have the ability now to have, more camps that you have? I know we run our summer camps through Rob at Park and Rec. As far as football, they can do their summer soccer programs there. They will not have to travel all the time to play their games. They can host soccer tournaments in the summertime. There's also flag football tournaments that you could host there as well on the weekends or during the week. All of Rob's rec programming can be housed out of there now with the softball / youth baseball. So their t-ball activities, and all their summer camps that they run around the community that could also be hosted out there as well. In the fall, there would be used by the school with the agreement, like they do for the ice arena in some aspects. And then also, their football, rec football in the fall that they host 1st through 6th grade. There's over 150 kids involved in that program. And then also their soccer programming that they could have as well through the rec department. And then additional,
sorry, go ahead.
Then additional things, you're able to get on those fields sooner than you are the grass fields in the springtime. So you open up probably a month earlier as far as any program they might want to do. So I don't know, Rob, did I leave anything out?
No, John, I think you hit it, especially with on the shoulder seasons. We're going to be able to extend our seasons or start the seasons earlier because when the snow melts and it's a 35-degree day, those fields will be able to be used if the snow is off of it. They're going to melt real quick. So the playability of those fields will be used a lot in the springtime.
Matt?
This is Brian. Could I answer Audrey's question?
Thank you.
Yes. Sorry. Yes. Go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
Yeah. From my perspective, as long as the city council doesn't let bids on the project and authorize construction before we have the land and the stormwater, I think we're okay. I mean, we need to keep moving along. We've got an alternate for the stormwater. And by going out for bids, we'll be able to nail down our prices. And up until now, I've had nothing but positive communications with the school district on transferring the property. And they've just asked for a bit more time to iron out a couple of things. So I'm not anticipating any issues. But prior to bid, we can stop and put things on hold until we resolve some of the issues that are not yet resolved at that time. So I'm not too concerned about moving forward. We just can't let bids. That's all.
I'm sorry, Mary or Audrey, I couldn't see. Did one of you guys have your hand up?
No, I'm at work and I was waving at someone. I apologize.
Oh, okay. Mary, no? Okay. Other questions? Anybody looking to take some action tonight? Otherwise, we got to move on.
Can I just say one thing? We have been in discussion with Sean's subcommittee stormwater as well. And, part of the local option sales tax is to help decrease flooding in the city. And so we're hoping to partner with his subcommittee to help. We're going to pull out some of the costs to our subcommittee to help with water movement so that we don't cause any problems, to that side of town. And then if I could just close, I just want to remind our committee and city staff and council members that, remember, the voters did approve this for what we set out to do. And as we know, there are costs involved, but this residents and the citizens wanted these projects. And this certainly is a nice amenity for the city. And hopefully that we all see it that way, and that we can absorb these costs, and we'll see great benefit to the city moving forward. Thank you.
I think it looks fantastic. Go ahead, Dennis.
Hearing what we've heard today, I would make a motion to approve the plans as presented.
Okay, I've got a motion from Dennis to approve the plans as presented.
I'll second.
Motion to approve. I got a second by Tony. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Anybody opposed? Okay, that motion passes, and we will move this to the Park and Rec Department committee at this point. So thank you for all the work. Appreciate the work, Danny. Keep up the great job, everybody, on this project. Looks like it's very exciting. I think people are super excited after a couple of years, ready to go here in 2021. So.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Mary, I look forward to talking to you next week, right?
Great. Good news then, I hope.
You bet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next up, item number 5 on the agenda, the event rec center update presented at 4:40. We're actually not too far off schedule. At this point, I am going to, with just a little bit of history here, hand off this to Mary, and then I will sit back, and I'm going to have her take the meeting from here moving forward. And so go ahead, Mary.
All right, thank you. So next up is the Events Center, Recreation Center update presentation. Let's see, Gretchen, do you want to introduce, please?
Sure. I am not seeing Chris on yet, our representative from our architect LSE. Rob, is he?
Yeah, he's here. I think it's under Randy. So Janelle, if you can make Randy the presenter.
Oh, perfect.
He's under a different name today. I think they might have 2 people with. So there we go.
Sounds good.
But Chris
I
is
see
on
that
board.
now. Great. So yes, we are so excited to be at this point where we can present our project to invest in Willmar. We have worked hard on this and are really looking forward to getting it done. So I'm going to pass it off to Chris, who is our architect with LSE, and he'll walk us through the plans.
Thank you, Gretchen. Can everybody hear me okay?
I think so.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having us on today. We're excited to show you a little bit more about the Willmar Rec Event Center. And there we go. So starting looking at the larger site context, with the building itself being the red in the center, as well as some of the site work that will occur immediately around that area. Looking at the building from a master planning of what may be future projects, understanding that there is a sports dome that may occur that I believe is being master planned more by the wide sit part of the project. The potential for locker rooms, additions, the covered ice rink, as well as the curling center, which we have been in contact with the curling center architect and are starting to develop strategies for how these two could play together and even connect. Our project itself is the rec and event center, as well as the access drive, reworking some of the drop off, and a new entry plaza, really creating a good, what we see as a welcome center for Willmar. People coming from out of town having something that's really clear, really navigable, and exciting. Looking at the event and recreation center a little closer and how it connects to the existing Blue Line Arena, the Cardinal Arena, the lobby will start to look a little familiar as you get up towards the top, as we're going to be updating finishes. And then stepping in a little closer, we're going to be adding a new vestibule, a new covered entry, as well as a playroom that comes off of the lobby. We show this potential for a future community room here. This is one of the alternates that we'll be including in the bid. So should the bids come in low, you have this ability for an added scope to the project that you could choose, but do not have to choose to bring into the project. And so this community room, I know as we've discussed, it has a lot of opportunities as you hold different, not only just meetings and community events, but also for officials, for volunteers, when you're holding your larger sporting events, having an opportunity for them to meet. We have also in the project several meeting rooms that can be used when you're holding conferences for meetings, but also, again, serving for officials, serving for volunteers, for parents, for staff that you might need for the setup for some of your larger events that are going to be going on. New toilet facilities, a new shower facility, as well as additional changing rooms for your rec programs. The rec center will, for larger events, use the main entry, but for your early morning practices, for other things where you don't want people going through the entire rec center, it has its own entrance. So this allows for your early morning to keep the rest of the building secure. Moving into the event and recreation space, it's two-station gym. It will have gym, volleyball, tennis, and 4 pickleball courts on each side. So a total of 8 pickleball courts, 2 basketball, 2 volleyball, 2 tennis. So it serves a lot of functions. And the opportunity for you to have spectators, not just for a sporting event, but for concerts, for seminars that might go on, for large meetings that you want to take place from the community coming into the space. From the back of house side, you'll be set up well for some of these larger events with the warming kitchen that will have the opportunity for caterers to come in, plug in what they need to have space to set up back of the house, as well as a window, sinks, counter space for a smaller community function to set up crock pots or anything that you need for something that's more do-it-yourself. And then what you kind of expect to see, your storage, your receiving, your mechanical rooms, staff toilet, happen in the back of house. Next, one of the really, I think, functions that is exciting for you is this event courtyard. Having this pre-function space allows you to, set up, have, as well as it's even an area that you could display different artwork or tables, check-in, anything like that. This event courtyard is really going to serve as your summer into your bumper seasons, a space that expands, makes the space a lot more attractive to your larger events, to your banquets, potentially even weddings, having the opportunity that they've got this extra outdoor space that expands the event center into something even larger. These will all play well into each other with your existing functions that you have. Should you need something really large, you have 2 more, your existing Blue Line rink that you could get really large expos. But when these are ice and they're not accessible, you now have a place that you can be continuing to have conferences and seminars, as well as your rec center events that you might need. Because the curling center is still, just getting started in design, we don't exactly know what their connection is going to look like as it comes and meets our building. However, we're setting up our building really well that they are able to just come and meet us directly into the pre-function space as well, so that really this hallway will connect the two all the way through. Take a look at what this might look like. So obviously you're gonna see the event center very clearly from the parking lot right in the front of the building, but also popping up the entry so that people who are coming from out of town, people who are seeing the city for the first time, it's really easy to figure out how to get in. It's really clear, and it works for any of the venues that they might be coming to. The entire building we're looking at for precast. It's really economical. It'll stand up for a really long time, pretty low maintenance costs. So we believe it's a really good solution for having a building that'll be around for a long time. It also has a lot of opportunities as we start to look at tints or patterns that we can put onto it so it doesn't look like a sidewalk that's been tilted up. We can really almost start to make it look like a stone. Additionally, of metal panels, again, something that's going to hold up really well, economical. And finally, we've got this glass and translucent wall panel. So we have, if you look at the base, we have a lot of glass. This means as you're walking up to the building, you can start to kind of see into the rec center. You've got some of these opportunities, for parents to see their kids, during practice without being too in the space. But obviously, if we did glass all the way through, you wouldn't be able to play in there. It would be a ton of glare. These translucent wall panels have insulation in between two sheets of kind of plexiglass surface. All of this can be engineered really specifically to the space so that it doesn't let too much light in, but also so that it throws the light further into the space. Meaning that during daytime hours, there are a lot of activities that you can do in the gym without even turning on the lights. Also, the insulation in it means that it has a much higher thermal value than what glass would have. So you're going to be seeing a lower heating and cooling load than if that was all glass. And so we think it's a really great application for this project. We have a couple of renderings looking, so this one's at the entry. You can see kind of the two different shades of precast that we might be thinking. The areas where we're kind of bringing in metal panel for color. And then, of course, just really clear and concise signage, making sure that the entry is really well positioned so that no matter where you're parking in the parking lot, no matter where you're coming in, you know exactly where you're going. And then stepping back and seeing the building a little bit further back with the whole event center. I think with this, we're opening the floor to any questions that you may have.
Yeah, this is Bob Pohl. I've got a couple of questions. I'm wondering what the surface will be in the building and what capacities would be, say, for a concert and capacity for a sit-down dinner event.
Yeah, so first for the flooring, we're looking at in the rec and event center itself, it would be a poured rubber flooring. It's designed as a really resilient surface for sport. So, bouncing a basketball, running on it. It functions really well, but it also holds up really well to putting tables and chairs or rolling things across it. So I think it'll function really well for the dual purpose that this is serving. In terms of capacity, from a fire code standpoint, we look at it about 1,200. I apologize, right in front of me. I believe it was, though, when you have tables and chairs, we're expecting it's closer to about 700 to 750 people.
Okay, thank you.
Bob, if I can add, I went down to the cities with Jim Anderson, who represents the tennis community and the pickleball community, and we toured a flooring company that has this poured floor, and to have him look at it to make sure that it will work for tennis and pickleball, and it will.
Okay. All right, thanks.
I see Dennis Dennis Anderson.
Thank you, Mary. Could we go back and talk a little bit about the kitchen? I'm not sure I understand what capacity there will be in the kitchen to make meals, or we call it a warming kitchen. I need to understand how that functions.
Essentially catering.
Yeah, it's essentially going to be for when you have caterers, they're not going to be able to cook in it. It doesn't have any ovens, it doesn't have a range or stove, but it's going to allow them to bring the food. They can hold it, they can plate it. There will be a 3-compartment sink so that they can do a little bit of clearing dishes. But in terms of actually cooking a meal, it's not a commercial kitchen, so it doesn't have any hoods. It doesn't have some of these larger, much more expensive elements. For a catering company, this is going to be just fine. For something that, like, if a family were to come in, there's going to be outlets they could cook it, plug in things like crock pots, but they're not necessarily going to be able to like bring like uncooked chicken, for instance, like into it and actually be able to cook it on a grill. If we were to go up to something that had these hoods, it's pretty expensive. So this is going to work really well for your catering. It's going to work really well for your smaller family events.
Okay. Mary, can I ask another question?
Go ahead.
I want to go to Gretchen. The same question that I asked John. Will you go through and review how this project meets the ballot question, please?
Sure, absolutely. So the list given to our committee at the cost of 10 million was pickleball and tennis, which we have provided, seating for concerts and shows. And we've chosen a scenario where that can happen in multiple options, whether that is using the bleachers and having events east to west, or using the entirety of the space, going north to south with chairs on the floor or tables or whatever the type of seating we'd want. So it's very multifaceted that way. Also, I'm not sure if he mentioned, but I just want to make sure in case I missed it, that the wall between Gym Station 1 and Gym Station 2 is not just a curtain. It is that fully retractable wall, which really creates the sound barrier between the two courts so that you can really have two completely separate functions. So just wanted to mention that in case that wasn't said. So again, that plays into having different concert shows, meetings, things like that. The kitchen, which has been provided there, the kids' play space, which has been provided, the outdoor covered skating rink, and the locker rooms would be the two items that are slated as future projects. And then meeting spaces, we did provide a couple different options. We have the meeting rooms, and then as he mentioned, the potential for that community room.
So Dennis, do you want to continue?
I mean, the event courtyard was an ad, apparently, and I don't know that that's very expensive, but can you give me a ballpark number, how much we're spending on the courtyard?
I could speak to that. So the event courtyard itself is what we'd be spending on it really is the landscaping, which is budgeted for the entire project at about $25,000. Some of that landscaping isn't related to the courtyard, but I would say probably 2/3, so maybe 18 to 20,000 is the event courtyard. The reason why there is a space there and why we didn't push the building up into the existing Blue Line Arena is the walls of the pre-function space and the gym space would have undermined the existing Blue Line's foundation. So we had to push the building south away from it, and the space was really left over, and we felt that it was an amenity that you could create there. If we were to eliminate the landscaping, that would save some money, but I wouldn't recommend pushing the building up.
And one last question, Mary, if I may.
Go
Where
ahead.
is the future covered skating rink? I've missed that somewhere here. Okay,
Yeah, so
It's
it's
on blue
right here.
I got it.
Making sure everything that we do doesn't hinder the ability for anything there to occur in the future. So we're making sure that any stormwater that we do, any paths that we do, don't block that site.
Okay, thank you.
So keep on this. I'd like to ask a question myself. Stay on this screen. What does the dotted red line mean?
The dotted red line is the boundary for the project that we're working on here. In reality, there actually might be a little bit more parking lot work that could occur as we change the direction for one side, but the vast majority of our project is occurring just within that red line. That's where you're going to be seeing the parking changes, the site changes, and then obviously the new building.
Okay, and not that I'm to continue, not that I'm real concerned right now, but when it goes into that potential, but it's not our project, curling center, what does that mean?
That we're working with the curling center on, what could be shared. So it doesn't mean that we're doing anything that's hindering the curling center. It just was, that's kind of where we're imagining that our project scope, the furthest that it could go. So if the curling center pushed further, we wouldn't move any more of our utilities into that area. But we're working really closely with them to make sure that we're not doing anything that they would have to tear out when they build.
Okay, and then if I could just ask one more question since I have the floor. Go to the picture where you show the actual event center and then like that meeting room in front, the potential meeting room. Okay, yep. So where did it go here? Potential future community room. Is that not built at all or it's framed in?
Right now, we're intending that it would not be built at all. So we would leave that space empty.
So can you then show me as I enter the building, your nice rendering of what it looks like from the parking lot?
Yes. So in this rendering, we actually do show the community room right there. I believe in the next one, I show it without, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so where that tree is that where the taller tree, is that the community room or the one?
Yeah. So kind of where that tree right to the far right of the picture is.
So what do you mean? The future will be like that tree will be down, or you've already sketched in behind that? That's the
yeah, so like the community room would be like here behind the tree. So
there. Oh, I'm on to the left side. Okay, so it's to the right.
To the right side.
And it's not in your picture.
Yeah.
But that's where it potentially could be.
Yeah, correct. And so that is the one piece that when it goes out to bid, we're going to be asking the contractors to provide a price to add that work should you wish for it to be done. So we have a list of, I believe it's 7 alternates, that one being the largest by far. A few of the others being the number of hoops that are in the gym, the bleachers. These are all ones that we expect that you're going to take. But the reason why they're alternates is our contract is written that we designed 97% of the price of the building, and we put the last 3 into alternates. This is in case there is a huge spike in steel costs or, you know, groundwork or something that just costs way more than has ever been estimated because of variability in bidding. You have the opportunity to move forward, assuming that, you know, you could choose to not take these alternates, but they fit within the 3%. The only one that doesn't fit completely within the 3% is that community room.
Okay, thank you. I believe Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. I just have a question if we could talk about parking. I remember conversations before about being concerned about all the activities that could be going on and all coming in the same door. And it would look like we're taking away some parking because of where the building is. So I'm just curious about how parking was addressed.
Yeah, so you are correct. We are losing a little bit of parking in the parking lot. Sorry, let me get back here. So you have one more row currently that is coming out. So there is a slight loss. However, when we had done some of our calculations, we felt that you already had a slight excess for what the Civic Center has and that you could afford to lose those. So we chose to not add additional parking into the project for additional cost.
Can I ask a question?
Sorry, Audrey, are you finished with your questions?
Yeah, I understand what he's saying, but I am concerned about parking because right now, when there are events out there, the parking lot is full. So if we're adding an additional 1,200 people, I'm just curious about that one. It still feels like we don't have adequate parking for all of the things that could be going on at one time.
Duly noted. Councilmember Osmus?
I have 2 questions, and part of it I'm going to piggyback on Audrey. Is there the potential in the future to be able to add parking to the southwest there? Because there's a lot of green space there.
Yeah, so currently right now there is a stormwater retention there. So it's not something that if we were to cover it, we just have to figure out how to take that additional stormwater as well as the stormwater of the parking. These are all very solvable things. So if there is a desire in the future to add parking, it certainly can be done. We just didn't choose to do it, at least currently how it sits in this project.
Okay. Second question. Do we have a ballpark estimate on what the covered ice rink would cost? And I'm curious, is anybody else getting any pushback from the hockey families about not adding that 3rd sheet of ice?
I can speak to that. Yeah, 2 million is the estimate, you know, flat, nice number. When we looked at different types of spaces, when we compared it to similar how Rob went to look at floors at different facilities, when we looked at other outdoor rinks facilities, you know, within the state and things like that, 2 million is where that kind of came out to.
And that's without bathroom facilities or anything? Just the shell covered?
I believe that's my understanding. Rob, you can maybe answer that if I'm missing something.
Yeah, it's a covered outdoor, non-refrigerated rink. So the plan would be that the kids could come in and we would designate locker room 12 to be like the warming house. And then there's a door off the blue line that they'll be able to change and then get out to the outdoor rink. There are bathroom facilities in the blue line lobby and inside the blue line that they'll be able to use for bathroom facilities.
Okay. I just, I envisioned just kind of like a wooden structure covered over ice. Obviously for 2 million, it's more than that.
Yeah, they would have metal girders. It would be a steel roof, cement floor, and it would be oversized. So it would be larger than what the rink actually is to help with, if it in the summertime for rain and all that type of elements that would happen. So it would be able to be multi-purposed in the summertime as well.
Yeah, I was going to add that in. It definitely has the capabilities to be a covered area post ice season for other events out there as well.
Okay. I just didn't remember if we had a dollar figure on that, because some of the input I was getting is that the Hockey Association pays like 30,000 towards rental for their ice space that they have to figure in from 6 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. and that there was a whole lot more need for ice than there was for basketball courts and a playroom. But I know that's what you had to struggle with the money that you had. I'm not saying you didn't do the best you could have. I was just wondering what the numbers were.
Yeah, and we totally understand that. We know that anyone that voted for this project, they have a specific piece that they are most interested in. I mean, that's obvious. It's a very multifaceted project, and certain, groups are going to be interested in other parts versus the other. And we just really felt and I want to, make sure it's understood, like our committee has representation from all of the ice activities. We had ice skating, curling, and hockey represented. So we want to make sure that, it's understood. We looked at all pieces. We looked at current schedules and how the ice is being used. And yeah, we understand that right now it takes a lot to make sure everyone can get their ice time in. But it really was felt that in the end, what we currently have fits the current need. And so that's why we felt, just like the rec fields, to really streamline and get maximum use of our budget, it made sense to start with this, I'd say, puzzle of a project where we can get all these things checked off the list, and the things that can be done as separate isolated projects are set as future options. Because if we went with the isolated projects first, you're going to be sitting for who knows how long to do the bigger crux of the project. Prices are just going to increase. And so we just felt, the committee really felt that the current need, the way to maximize the money, was the proposal that we're putting forward.
Thank you. Good job with what you had to work with. I know you had to go round and round. Good job.
Mary,
Are
I've
there
got
any
a
other
question.
questions? Dennis?
Thanks, Mary. I want to go to the curlers just for a minute. I have some history with them going back probably 8 or 10 years. And I think it was stated that you've been meeting with them. I'd like some assurance that the curling club is on board with this whole thing.
Yeah, we do feel really comfortable that they are. Gary Laughlin specifically is, of course, one of our subcommittee members. So he was definitely our, I'd say, liaison between the curling club and this project. And like they've shown, in the picture here, we have fully considered where the curling facility is going to go. We absolutely want to make sure it is connected to the Rec and Event Center. That's going to make it the most useful all year round. And I know Rob can definitely speak to that, the facility and operational part of it. But we do feel really confident that we've made this work exceptionally well for that future project.
Thank you.
Rob?
I would just add to what Gretchen said. When we started doing the master plan for this project, we had the curlers involved at the beginning to understand where the concepts were going to be. We had 3 different plan options, and when we decided on where the plan was at, they understood that where they were going to be at. We met in August to go over the plan with the architect, and just recently, since the agreement is now in place with the curlers, we met here in early January to give them the layout of the land, understanding how they're going to be connected. Recently, last week, we actually met with LSE and the architects for the curlers to meet, and plans have been shared. And now it's just kind of going through the schematic design about how the curling facility will fit into this project.
Mary, can I ask a question? This is Matt.
Oh, sure. Yep, I don't see you, so I didn't know you had a question. Thanks.
So, a couple of questions I have. Is there any estimate on what this projected to come out on the budget, and what's the square footage? And then I might have a question for Julie, but I guess those two first.
But you're asking the square footage of the event center?
Yeah, the indoor space, not the exterior plazas and stuff, but the indoor square footage. Roughly, what are we looking at? And roughly, before it goes a bid, do you have any estimates on where we're going to be from a budget standpoint?
Yeah, so overall, it comes out to right about 25,000 square feet. Yeah, 25,000 square feet total for the entire center.
Estimate was like 9.7.
Yeah, so the estimate, including soft costs, so LSE and our engineers' fees, some permit fees, comes out to right about 9.7 million. That also includes having some contingency for construction, as well as contingency as, you know, we're bidding in the future and the estimate was in the past. So that's what we believe it will be. If it comes in a little low, that's when you have the option to take the community room as well, which is another about 200 something thousand.
So the question I have for Julie, if she's still on, is what in here is satisfies not to your group? I mean, we build a 25,000 square foot building. Now we're going to build another 25,000 square foot community center. What the biggest issue that I came up with when I went to the public and did the presentations was number one, we can't, sorry, I can't find my camera. Maybe I'm back on. Number one objection when I was out in the public was, what about the YMCA? So I went out door to door, presented with many of you on this call, said we're not going to build another YMCA. And this is different. I'm not saying it is. So from a public standpoint, I'm getting calls, and from one family member that their family has well over $1 million into the YMCA, and they're asking, why are we building another YMCA when my family has well over $1 million into the YMCA? Number one. So I love this. It's great. You guys did an awesome job, but I really believe that we need to make sure if we deliver this to the council that we know exactly what's going to be programmed out there. I know the city needs gym space, and my opinion on this, it's I would rather see 15,000 feet versus 25, or Julie says, let's jump in here and try to make this a community center too. I don't know how we're going to do 25,000 feet event center, $20,000 community center, and a bubble. I mean, we really need to just, our committee needs to say, are we really going to do all three of these? I'm for all of them, but if we're only going to do one or two of them, I mean, that's a legitimate question that I'm interested in somebody answering, or the council's going to have to answer to a lot of people because they are going to get calls. And then the other thing is, what are these big events in Kansas County that we are going to bring in to fill 25,000 feet? Because I'm all for it. I'll be the first one to help market them. I just don't know what they're going to be. And maybe they're out there. So those are just a few thoughts. I've got a lot of time and energy into this. I think it's fantastic. My point is, are we duplicating any of our services that we have in our community? I think everybody needs to think about that. Could we do 15,000 feet here, do the outdoor rink, and fund the bubble? Could we do 15,000 feet for 5 million, do the outdoor rink covered, and the bubble for put $1 million into both of those. I just want to reach as many people as we can. Somebody can convince me or the council that we're going to reach a whole bunch of people here that we went to, great. But there are soccer groups out there that voted for the bubble. There's hockey groups out there that voted for the hockey arena. I would prefer 15,000 feet, scale it a little bit, fund the outdoor rink and fund the bubble. That's my opinion. I'm not being disrespectful. I think it's good, but we're all on here to make sure that we share our views. I'll leave it at that. But if anybody has any thoughts on my comments, I'd appreciate it.
I can answer some. Go ahead. Okay. As far as the community center, I think we're going for a different demographic, at least for right now, the way the present usage of the community center. And that's only because of its location and how it was purchased and who the users are. But when we went to the public with all of these other projects, I think they were very family driven, kid driven, and senior citizens, I think, looked at it to think, what is there in it for me? Maybe my grandkids, but what is in it for me? And at that time, the community center, we have serious issues with the roof, and it was an old Elks Club, and its structure is breaking down, so it needs to get replaced. And so 2 million was just kind of put into this is how we're going to include the seniors' needs for the community. Now, for what they do with their space, you've got quilters that are in there. You've got the choir group that is in there. You've got different music groups that use up some of the smaller rooms. People that go out there you've got the military coffees, you've got the card playing. They have music on Wednesdays afternoons, and they have dances on Friday afternoons that are a huge draw, 100, 200 people that would come in for the dances. Then it's also can be a space, and where there was an overlap, that in my opinion, was when both facilities, the event center and the community center, was looking at both putting in commercial kitchens. Because one thing that for the community center was if they were going to do community cooking classes or for people using that facility to have the commercial kitchen, whether they'll be able to continue with that idea, they might have to scale down to a caterer's kitchen as well, because a commercial kitchen is very expensive. What else? Did that answer your questions on that part?
Yeah, no, I'm just looking at it big picture, and I'm just saying, would the city council really fund the operating costs of 25,000 feet here, 20,000 feet of community center, and a bubble? And if not, then that's fine. We just need to, as a group, as an Invest in Willmar board, we need to put the council in a good spot. What you just described is fair, and I understand it, but I'm just saying, at the end of the day, there's only so many dollars coming in. So I'm just saying, are we giving the community center or the bubble false hope by going 25,000 feet here? Again, I would go 15,000 feet here, and I would put up the outdoor rink in the bubble, and you could do all that for 10 million. I know that's not what people on this call want to hear. That's my opinion, and you guys all have the ability to have a different opinion.
Matt, Mr. Brian, or Mary, I guess you're leading it right now.
Yep, go ahead.
So what is the proposal? To send the committee back and redesign? I thought this is what the purpose of the committee was up to this point in time, was to hammer out all these questions and then come up with a proposal.
We're talking about $10 million. I think it's okay if we have a difference of opinion. And I don't think if you took out one court and modified it and scaled it and said, we want one other option, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. If the committee doesn't want to do that, that's fine. But I can tell you the public does want to see that. Or here's the other option. Come back with a scaled version. The bubble gets funded. So does the outdoor rink. We do 15,000 feet. And do that, come back with that option. Or number two, come back next month and show us all these events that we're going to fill that building up, because that's 25,000 feet. And I think you're going to have a problem with the council. That's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong, Brian. But it's $10 million. It's a 100-year decision. And I think everybody can say what they want.
Isn't the bubble put on hold? Isn't that what I heard earlier in the rec fields, that the bubble is some future project, but not part of this project?
It
It's
is
not
my
this group.
understanding that they can't afford the bubble, and so it's in a different phase.
It's not this group's to fund the bubble. It's not this group's to fund the bubble. But it's
Right.
our job as a board to try to get as much money and try to work with every group that we can. And that's my opinion. I think I would like to see that as an option. If nobody else does, that's fine. That's my opinion. That's all I'm saying. I'm just telling you what I'm.
Okay, I think Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Mary. For me, again, we've seen the drawings, they're great. We've not seen operational costs. We've not seen what it's going to cost the city to run this facility. And I appreciate, we've been told we're going to need to raise property taxes in order to do this. And I understand that, but I think making a decision on this without having an understanding of what it is going to cost the community, I think for me as a council member, I feel responsible that I need to understand how using these local option sales tax dollars today, what impact is that going to have on the city right now? And the second thing is the council is also looking at the community center and city hall, which we're going to be having a meeting, and we've been told we'll need to raise taxes to do that. And so if it comes to an either or, can we afford to do both? Can we afford to do any? That's kind of where I'm at. And so I'm struggling a little bit with moving this forward without having an understanding. And I know that's not the architects. I mean, the architects can provide some of those costs, but I do feel that this group and the council will need to have an understanding of the costs related to moving forward with this project. And so for me, that's where I'm hung up, is that I don't think that information is there to help us make a decision with revenues and expenses to this operation. So that's where I'm hung up right now. I will also say, there is pushback out there. And it comes, across the lines from how people plan to use the facility. And, if you go back and look at what the design was, I'm not sure this is a time that our community wants to embrace competition, whether either. And so those are my concerns. So.
Thank you. Gretchen?
Yeah, I want to echo the same sentiments that you just heard from the rec field committee, where they shared that what they presented, which also does not cover everything that was voted on by this community, is the best way to maximize the dollars that they were given. In the end, you're all aware the $10 million price point doesn't cut it for what was all wanted in this project. And so we have done everything we can to make sure that every dollar is going to be utilized to the best of its ability. But the components of the project that we are able to provide right now were things that were voted on, and they're expecting them to happen. And they also have come with costs, just like the rec fields, which you guys chose to pass through, even with not all the components of their list being able to happen. So I feel like that's important to say. I also want to talk about the YMCA, whatever is being talked about the YMCA stuff. In our I mean, first of all, that was never brought up as a concern. Literally in the last 2 years, we've never as a subcommittee been told, make sure this doesn't look like the Y, make sure this doesn't look like the Y. That is a very new issue that's come out of somewhere. And to me, there's absolutely no similarities except for the fact that they maybe hold some similar rec programs. But the YMCA is a fitness center. It is a pool. It's incredibly different than this project. There are totally different venue options that we provide that the Y wouldn't even consider. And if we want to talk about what can our facility bring in, we have Beth Fisher on our subcommittee for a reason. There are different things that she can't bid on because she doesn't have the proper space to do it. Different conventions. I can't speak to what those exactly are or the exact dollar amount of what they would be, but that's why she was on our committee, to give us insight on the needs that the Convention and Visitors Bureau and what they can bring to the community, the needs that they have, and this facility is going to meet that. Now, you want to cut that down to 15,000 square feet. Not sure that that's actually going to give this community anything, because you've now sliced it in practically half, and we're back to just maybe one gym. Now, if there is something that shows that cutting it to 15,000 is going to give us, the 2 million for the outdoor rink, I mean, fine. You're gonna take one thing to get another. I mean, in the end, is 15,000 square feet going to be worth it? I don't think so. What's the point of having one court? You can't have multiple things going on at the same time. That's part of this project. It is meant for versatility. That's why it's been designed the way it's been designed. So yeah, I feel like those things need to be said. And I get it. There's things that people want that we're not providing. I totally get it. People want more ice. They think it's needed. We as a subcommittee looked through all of the possible information about that, and unfortunately we disagree. We feel like the ice that is provided is used right now to its needs. It's my understanding that there are morning opportunities for ice time that are not utilized right now, and like I said, we've talked to all the entities that use the ice, and they're very comfortable with where things are at right now.
Thank you, Gretchen. Matt.
Oh, Gretchen, I think you bring up some very good points, and I think you've done an awesome job. What I would recommend for me to be comfortable as a board member looking at this objectively, number one, 3 things that I'd like to see. I'd like to see Julie's committee make sure that we're not going to duplicate. We've got a lot of space. If we're going 25,000 feet, all I'm asking for, are we really going to do a community center to 20,000? Is there any way that Julie's group, and maybe that's not possible, that's fine. Second thing I'd be interested in is I do think it would help you guys get it through the next step to make sure that Beth puts together what can we bid on, because we really do need to fill that. Whatever direction we go, there's going to be pressure to make sure that building's being used. And so if we can really fill that, bid on another 30 or 40 events and maybe get 10 of them, that's fantastic. I'm all for that. I want to bring business. I want to grow Willmar. I want Willmar to be a regional center and stop talking like we're a regional center, start acting like one. So I like it. But I would say those 2 things. And then the third thing is, you're going to have to get to the council with what it's going to cost to operate 25,000 feet. I mean, I think everybody will support it. They want it. And then I think the reality is, can we do that of community center and a bubble? I think everybody needs to process that. So I'm on board, not tonight, but if other people are, that's fine. I'd like to see more information. I will give it a very fair, objective review. Yes, I think the covered structure would be fantastic, but if it's not in the cards, it's not in the cards. So those are my final thoughts. I appreciate everybody's time. I appreciate all the work. I think the architects have done a phenomenal job, by the way. I just want to make sure that they know that.
I guess I'd like to, go ahead, Gretchen.
I do have a question, because I feel like maybe it's just me, a lack of understanding of you know, from the get-go, when all of this was being desired and being put together to go to a vote and all of this stuff, I feel like, why are we constantly questioning that operational costs are an issue? I mean, how was any of the projects going to be done without having operational costs? Like, why? I mean, that's a duh. Like, it's gonna cost to run new facilities. How is that not gonna happen? And why is that such a question mark? I don't get that.
I think that's a good question. I don't have a good answer for it. I think it's part of the problem is what we did is we did a couple things I think really, really well. We didn't spend thousands and thousands of dollars on architects, go get funding, and then we didn't get the funding. Okay, the school did that. They didn't get the event center or the field house. We didn't go spend 100, 200,000 on the schematics. We decided to go for the funding, and then we came back and said, okay, now we're going to design it. And that's what the challenge is that we all have. Because I've been hearing from people for the last week nonstop on all this. So I think we'll be okay as long as we can explain it to the council. But it's just one of those things. And the council didn't drive this. I think it's very rare that a community grassroots group does this. I was down there in front of, for 2 days with Audrey, Rob, and a couple other people. I was down there for 2 days at the Capitol in front of the Senate and the House selling this to them. I think it was everybody else was the city administrator and the council members, and it was just Tony, John, and myself and Mary were down there. And so it's a little unique, Gretchen. I think that it's a good question. I don't have a great answer for it, though.
Bob, we're going to go to Bob, and I think Brian also has a question. I would just like to, before Bob starts, I want to feed off of what he did say, and I'm glad that you brought up how many could this seat, because that is one thing that this community tops out at. Existing facilities is only so many, like 400 people can sit in an area in our community right now. I was happy to hear that we could get 700, 750, depending on the configuration of tables and that this is one of those things that we could have a sit-down dinner with a larger venue. So I did want to say that. Also, 32 years ago, I started out on the outdoor swimming pool for the Willmar community, and subsequently 2 other task force with Councilmember Osmus. The city couldn't afford any of that for the last 32 years. And guess what? We do have a swimming pool, and they've somehow been able to fund it. So I just wanted to say that if the structure is built, somehow they got to figure it out. Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I also want to say Gretchen's done a great job with her committee on this project. I really like the looks of it. But sometimes you come up with questions in the process that you didn't have before the process. So I'm kind of on with Matt. I'd like to just see, not as a major item, but just a quick evaluation of what if we changed it to 15,000. Maybe the easiest thing to do is to find out shortening that space up, which I think is valuable and needed space in our city, but we might just discover that shortening it up doesn't even come close to helping us do other items. But it could also lead to combining a little of the community center, and we find out we can do more than we're doing right now. So I'd support a little more discussion.
Okay, thank you, Brian. And then Audrey after Brian.
Yeah, I just got a couple comments. Every dollar that you spend on engineering services is a dollar you don't spend on the actual capital project. Mary, you can attest to that the more options you throw out there, the more money you spend on architect and engineering. And pretty soon you got the point of diminishing returns. So I just point that out. Number 2, I want to point out an experience that I had with a prior employer with the city of New Ulm. And everybody knew that the new $9 million hockey arena was going to cost taxpayers something to operate. And the first city council budget that was proposed, taxes on the local option sales tax projects, which were a community center, a recreation, field house, and 2 sheets of ice for a civic center, was going to increase property taxes 13%. And I posed that to the council president, and his comment was, the citizens asked for it. They didn't ask for us to build it and lock the doors because we were afraid of operating it. And I guess that was a kind of a revelation to me that, you know, the citizens did ask for it. They are expecting it. And if you give them what they expect, you know, most of the time they're willing to pay. Maybe Willmar's different, but from my perspective, you know, increasing taxes 13% for recreation, we didn't even have anybody show up at the budget hearing, you know. So I just throw that story out there that sometimes maybe our fears are worse than reality, and everybody expects costs to go up because we're being provided an item. And as Matt had noted, you know, being a regional center, you hope to recoup that by people coming into your community and you holding events to offset that cost, and that's part of the understanding of the project. So I just wanted to go, you know, on record as saying that because I have lived it, I've seen it, and if you have a 4 softball field complex and you don't buy any baseballs or have any umpires to run tournaments, people are going to be upset too. So,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. Audrey?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I think it is important for us to understand what the operational costs are. Are we going to have to raise taxes? Yes. But we passed a local option sales tax for 13 years for 30 million. We didn't say we had to do all of these projects the first year. And this hasn't been a normal year. Do we know if we're going to get our LGA this year? Do we know if we're going to have to lay people off? Are we going to choose between building a city hall or building an event center? Or are we going to do both? All I'm asking for is the figures for us to make an informed decision. And I'm not sure this community can or wants to have taxes raised between 10 and 20% in 1 year to do these projects. And yeah, we passed it. Yes, it's going to cost more money. Yes, I understand that. But when is the right time to raise taxes in this community to the point that we're talking about? I'm not sure with the economic condition of our community right now that this is the right time to just blatantly move forward without having that information and awareness.
So I'm hearing you say, can we get some operational costs figures chart from our rec director?
Yes, I can provide them. We've been working on them. LSE is going to give us operational costs as far as utilities goes.
Dennis.
Thank you, Mary. I think we've really had a good discussion tonight, and a lot of points were brought up. I'm really not ready to vote on anything. I would like to get a little more clarity, and if we could identify some of those questions and get those answered at the next meeting, I think we could have a very quick discussion on it and hopefully pass it. But I'm not ready to vote to approve tonight.
Tony?
I'd just like to share, John and I reached out to Aaron Bachman at the Development Commission for the city and the county, and he put us in touch with the University of Minnesota Extension Service. And we had specific questions because I know operational costs keep coming up. And you know how I feel about that. I think the voters have spoken. If we want Willmar to move forward, and I think our citizens want us to do this, that we should just do it. But we're trying to get additional data to show the city that there may not be direct, tangible tax dollars coming into city coffers, but as Brian spoke to, with tournaments, people visiting our retail stores, our restaurants, our grocery stores, our hotels, that the business owners of our community are going to see a benefit from all these projects. Could we see some additional property tax if people see Willmar as a vibrant regional center and they buy our lots and build houses here? And what I'm really worried about is if we don't do this, are people even want to stay in Willmar? Why don't they move to Alexandria? Why don't they move to Brainerd or Mankato? I've spoken about this in the past, that it's hard to recruit to outstate Minnesota. And I want to make Willmar as attractive as it can be. So there's more to come on this U of M extension service, and hopefully we'll have some good data to show the city council and city staff. Thanks.
So this is a stepping stone. Obviously, it's the Invest in Willmar board. Then they're going to go to the Park and Rec board. They're probably going to have some questions about Park and Rec stuff. And then it will go to finance. Do we worry at this stage how it's going to be funded? And do we just say, let's move the process along? And as you go along, Rob and the city administrator and everybody gets those things together, because really the stop point is potentially 2 more committees away.
I think, Mary, since we're not getting the recommendation or the motion to move this forward to Park and Rec, it dies here. It doesn't move forward. I mean, Brian can correct me on that, but I don't think it moves forward from
I
here.
understand that. I understand that. But what if we did move it along? Because is our committee focused on financial, or is our committee the concept? Brian, please clarify.
This has been brought up more than probably 5 times at this meeting. The project is what the committee is all about. And whether or not the project continues, whether or not you want to increase taxes for, for operations, or whether they want to delay the project, for 2 years for a better time, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's the city council's bailiwick. They gave, the citizens gave X dollars per project. The committees were to create a project, and now it goes through the system. But the actual, the selling of the bonds, you guys don't get involved with. The timing, Audrey is right. They could say, we're going to do the rec fields because that was the next priority, but we're going to hold off on the event center for 12 months until we see what the economy does, post COVID. They're the gatekeepers of the projects, to be quite honest, but they have to have a project in their hand before they can gatekeep, before they can delay, before they can put it forward. And that's the role of this committee. That's how I see it. Others may see it differently, but I know we've talked about it in the past, that the financing and the scheduling and the deciding of do we increase taxes, that's not this committee's role, that's the city council's role. Correct me if I'm wrong.
First I have Matt, and then Julie, and then John.
So I'll make it quick. Yeah, I don't want to get hung up here on operational costs, but because of like Tony spoke very well about, the whole idea is hopefully people build homes. We want to grow our community. Hopefully businesses want to move here, and because they can see that they can attract employees and retain people, and it's a great community to raise kids and families and keep our seniors, more stuff for seniors and all that, for indoor stuff and that. So I don't think we're that far. Nobody here is trying to kill the deal. All I'm trying to do is I'd like to have 2 things. If I could make a request, great. If we can't, number one, I want to get behind this if we're going to move $10 million forward, because I'm out in the public every day, so I either want it down to 15,000 feet, put the outdoor rink up, try to help the bubble. If that's not going to happen, then what I want to see, which will help me help the subcommittee, give me the events that we're going to hopefully take a shot at getting. It will help me help you, so we don't have a 25,000 foot structure sitting there when we have 7-8 months out of the year where people are outside quite a bit. So that's all I'm looking for, is if Beth can provide some events that we could take a shot at and try to bring in a bunch of stuff to Willmar, that gets me excited, and that's a game changer for me. So that's how I feel. 15,000 feet, scale up to 5 million, or let's just see some of these events so we can all try to promote Willmar and get excited about it. That's all I'm asking for.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Julie? And then John.
Matt may have helped clarify it. So the stumbling block right now is just on the event center, because we are moving forward because we've already sold the bonds for the rec fields and Robbins Island and Swanson, right?
No.
No?
Robbins Island and Swanson only.
So if you
Only
don't
done
make
Robbins Island and Swanson are the only two that were included in the $5 million bond issue.
okay, so the rec fields can't move ahead if you guys don't vote tonight?
No, the rec field I thought was moved forward, and then that would then come to the city council or go through the process to get to the
Okay.
city council, at which time then the city council is going to decide, do we just sell a $6 million bond to pay for the rec field, or do we wait until the event center project gets brought before them so that we can do a $16 million bond?
Okay.
Go ahead, Julie. Okay, John?
Hi, thanks. Thanks, Gretchen, for presenting. I haven't spoken on, get my feelings on this yet. I'm supportive of this. I know that being on a subcommittee and a chair of it, that not getting everything that you want on your list is troublesome to some groups of people. I mean, I know just from our perspective, the soccer people are really disappointed that the bubble is not higher up on the list and getting funded for that, and I know that the outdoor rink and the locker rooms are not on this as well right now. I guess this is a long process, and we always say that phase twos sometimes never happen, but I guess it's our job as community leaders and councilmen and women to continue that process, to continue to improve our community. If we don't, I moved here 12 years ago, and the park systems were really poor, I thought. And we have young kids, and over the years I saw things get better, and I'm proud of the things that we've done. And when we started this process over 3 years ago, knocking on doors and things, and I've learned a lot through this, but I'm supportive of this project as it is. And I know there's lots of questions, but the subcommittee was tasked to do a job. They've done their job. I think it's great discussion that we've had. And if you need to table it for a month, that's fine. But I'm supportive of what they've done and to move forward with it.
Gretchen, do you have a direct response to John? And then Tony would like to make a comment.
Yes, more or less. I guess as chair of this subcommittee, I just want to make sure I understand why, and this doesn't have to be answered, it's maybe rhetorical, but I just want to put it out there that we've worked on this project for 2 years. And it's not like this is the first time that this committee is seeing the layout of this project or what was priority. We've given you priority lists for months, like coming up on a year. You have known what we were going to put before other things. And so to ask us now to go back and spend more of this money on architects to redesign and cut it down and do all of that, and even ask for CVB to come in and give estimates. I'm sorry, there's been months that we could have been asked to do these things, and I feel like it is a it is essentially a waste of time and money to do that now. I'm done.
Thank you. Tony?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the rec center's proposal. I'm looking for a second.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded by Tony and then John. Is there discussion? I would like to say thank you, Gretchen, and the committee, first of all. Like Brian has said, I get the process of not getting everything you want, and then also going back and having to spend more money on the non-tangibles that will, I mean, obviously you need drawings, but some of the things you're never going to get back, the more money we put into other professionals. Is there, but also I'm hoping that there could or should or will be a checklist of priorities following. If you don't get A, B, and C, then it's D, E, F. So thank you. Audrey?
I'm really struggling with this one. You guys have heard me multiple times say, do it right or don't do it. I don't have, if this came to the council right now, I would have to vote it down without the rest of the information. And so I'm uncomfortable voting it yes without having that information. You know, I serve on the CVB board. I know how important it is, but I also know how frail some of our businesses are right now. And I get that we're going to have to tax to do this, but I am not convinced that we can afford to do this. At the same time, we're trying to make a decision. I think we need to talk about community center and with that. So I will vote no on this project. I was hoping that it would be tabled for a month I mean, the committee's done a great job, but there are circumstances, I think, beyond just doing this that the council will need to consider. So that is where I am at right now.
I would like to say thank you, Audrey, to that conversation. I would like to say let's stay in our lane. And our lane is, should we move this project forward? Yes or no? Is there any other discussion? Seeing no discussion, I would like to hear, let's see, everybody unmute, because I think we need to hear people. All those.
Probably should be a roll call vote, Mary.
Okay.
That way you don't have people talking over themselves, stuff like that.
Okay, so roll call. John Conold?
Yes.
I'm not doing this in alphabetical order. Is there a way I'm supposed to do this? I'm just looking at my screen.
Go ahead, Mary, just as you're doing it.
Okay.
Yep, that's probably as easy as anything.
Okay. Dennis?
No.
Let's see, Rob, no. Matt?
No.
Audrey? Or Councilmember Nelson? No. Okay. Tony?
Yes.
Bob Poe?
Yes.
And then is it Mary? Who else is on here that votes? And Mary votes yes. So it looks like we have 4 yeses, 3 noes to move forward to going towards the Park and Rec committee. I would charge the people that need to do their homework, get ready for that, or for the next step. Am I speaking out of turn there? All right, so that project is moving forward. On to the next point. Matt, I will turn the meeting back over to you.
I think the screen just said he left.
His picture left. but okay, I'll continue. He might not be there. So the next piece, number 6, is financial update. I think we all received a email earlier about the projections and where we're at. Is Steve or Brian wanting to speak to that?
Yeah, I could start off with, and then if Steve has any information. I see Rob is flashing a hand there too. You have something, Rob?
Rob, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I just want to thank LSE for coming tonight, and they can log off for the rest of the meeting. So thank you guys from LSE. We'll be in contact with you tomorrow.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, you should have all received the sales tax receipts. Looks like the November numbers have come in. I get my papers here. It looks like we've got 188,000 for November 2020, which and we've got our initial, well, 179,000 for December of 2020, which is averaging about, I'm going to say $180,000 a month. So to the extent that, 250,000 was the projected number, we're at 180. Obviously, that does put pressure on, and the quickie analysis that I've been working with Doug Green and Steve on, as far as is there enough sales tax coming in to cover costs, and at this point in time, if we got the same sort of bond issue deal that we got for the 5 million that we just sold, where we received $5 million, but we only have to pay 4.5 million back, kind of a thing. And that's kind of a nice deal. So if we continued on doing that, we could pay for the recreation fields. We could also, bond for the event center, and it gets tight, but it's very possible that we could do the community center. And the one thing that there is no more money left for is the stormwater projects to reduce any problems that were identified, on the stormwater committee as part of the $7 million for those activities. So it gets tight after you get to the community center, right on the edge. You might be able to do $1 million of the 2, or you can do the whole 2, but what doesn't get funded literally is the stormwater. So if you sell all the debt and you have to use all your revenue to pay off that debt, there's no money left over for that floating stormwater project that comes up every year for the next 12 years, kind of a thing. And that's where, Sean has a list, which if you go back to a comment that was made earlier, that list was the basis for the $7 million in the local option sales tax, but it didn't necessarily include stormwater projects for the recreation fields. That the recreation fields kind of had to stand on their own, but I'll let that conversation happen with the city engineer. Maybe it's doable. I just want to go on record. That wasn't one of the projects on the stormwater list. And so when you talk about the voters voted for the things in that category, they did not vote for stormwater activities at the rec fields. They voted for other projects, and just put that out there. So the good part is revenue is coming in at $180,000 a month. The not so good part is we still have to tighten our belts, and up to this point in time, the community center is the next one on the list that is questionable, and then stormwater becomes really questionable after that. Steve, did you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, Brian, I think you explained the information real well. Lateness of the meeting, I only have 2 things to add. First of all, the chart that was included in the email that went out, Brian and I have talked in the past about what happened in July for that peak. And we are communicating with the Department of Revenue, and that if members remember, the state deferred businesses of when they had to submit their sales tax revenues, their collections. And so that July was the deadline of when those businesses had to submit that to the state that they had collected for the month or 2 months prior to that. So we will, in the next meeting, have a third line of what the actual collections were. That amounted to about $42,000. So that $240,000 that was collected in July, $42,000 of that was really collected sales tax from previous months that the state sent to us after the businesses had to actually pay that. And the second item I just wanted to mention tonight was that we will get the bond proceeds for Robbins Island and Swanson Field. The $5 million of bond proceeds will be coming in next Wednesday. And so we will be able to update all our numbers once those numbers are in and we have paid what the cash that we have spent on those to the state with those bond proceeds. So happy to answer any questions.
Well, you know, I keep trying to figure this money thing out. And when we're at November during a pandemic and we're at 188,000 in October 2019, November 2019, December 2019, and even January prior to the pandemic, I mean, gosh, it's interesting. We're better than prior to the pandemic.
Yeah, the sales tax revenue coming in is we've commented about that before, is sometimes you just don't understand why it does what it does, but it fluctuates so much and we don't really know why. We do know why the spike is. And also maybe Steve, if you want to talk about any information we received on out-of-state sales tax or non-local sales tax, you can update with whatever you have on that too. That'd be good, I think, for everybody.
Yeah, we've just received this past week all the detailed information of all the sales in Willmar, including online sales. And so we're analyzing that as we speak. And that during the pandemic, those numbers increased because people were buying a lot of things online. Now, when the restrictions start lightening up, and we will see, we're anxious to see if that shifts back to the local businesses as they open up and online stays as it is, or if that will drop. So we just received that. It's a lot of information. It is private, but we will be able to analyze how much of that is online sales.
Yeah, the other thing I would just point out is that part of the bond requirements is that we actually not spend 10% of our proceeds as a buffer. So, you know, when we collect the money and then we use that to pay our debt, I'm just going to use a hypothetical number. If our debt was $1 million, we could only, or we need to have at least $1.1 million in revenue. We have to have 10% more. And so if you do it the other way around, if we've got $1 million in debt, $1 million in revenue, we can only have $900,000 in debt. Okay, so it's not just, you know, we can maximize this. Our debt is actually tied to how much money is coming in to support it, and that's the restrictor on selling the debt, is how much revenue we have. I mean, we've got an allocation from the residents for $30 million, but our revenue does not support $30 million, so we can't sell $30 million worth of debt. I mean, it's just as simple as that. And so what we're trying to do, and we'll have it probably for the next meeting, is more of a fine-tuned number, which includes the rec fields, the event center, and the community center, so that the board can see that, you know, we're right at the breaking point. Either we can or we can't do it, but we'll only know until we try to sell the bonds. Our bond counsel may look at it, and our financial advisors will say, you can do project 1, 2, but you can't do project 3 because you don't have enough revenue. So we're going to be working on that because that's the inhibitor. It's not the taxes. It's not the operation costs, right? To build it. It's how much sales tax is coming in. How much debt can we have? So we'll make sure that gets on the next finance report.
Okay.
Mary,
Thank you. Councilmember Nelson? Whoops, who's talking?
Mary, I have one final comment.
Oh, sure.
Brian talked about the bonds that we had sold for Robbins Island and Swanson Field, and I'm not sure if the committee had heard, but the net interest cost was approximately 1%. And then we had a big discount. And so that's what he was referring to. If that carries over on the future bonds, that's kind of what he was alluding to.
Thank you. Councilmember Nelson?
I think it's interesting listening to what we can afford and can't afford to do, but I do think it comes back that this committee is responsible for finance. Part of it, and to understand what it's going to do. We sat and checked off lists of, what did we do for the fields and the events, the rec center. I don't think we can just chalk off that we're not going to do stormwater, in that there's a lot of stormwater projects that need to be done in this community too. And so I'm sorry, but I do think the finances roll into all of these projects and that we do need to be fiscally responsible.
I agree with that, Audrey. It's just the role of this committee versus the role of the city council. The city council's, that's their role to determine priorities. The Invest in Willmar committee was tasked with putting together projects, and then it's up to the city council to say yes or no.
But we've been being updated about how we're going to bond and what we can do and all those things, and it does relate to the projects. So I hear you loud and clear, with that, but I do think that it crosses over on these projects.
Okay, I saw you and you were unmuted, Audrey, but on my end, I guess my mic was disconnected and it came back on. So I'm assuming you figured that all out, but I didn't need to hear your question. I mean, I could have, but we won't go back over it. Anybody else? Are we done then? Any other comments? We're done with the update. Our next meeting would be March 10th. No other discussion. If for whatever reason, I guess we voted both groups to go forward, so there's no special meeting going forward with us, with those two committees. So we're done with that. All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mary.
Second,
All right.
Tony.
Councilmember Nelson and Tony scheduled to adjourn at 6:18. Thank you.